Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diann Cohen with MacroPro, and I'm joined by Patty Waldeck, the president and owner of MacroPro. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Patty. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm really happy to be able to answer the questions people have. There's so many questions on this subject.
There is. Now, you have been in business for 36 years, going on 37 years, and we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot of changes in the industry. We've been through fee schedules, the second revision, etc. We work with the DIR, working on changes in our particular area of workers' comp. What would you say this attestation has done for the company? Has this been one of the busiest times?
This was so all-encompassing for everybody because we do both workers' comp and civil. Uh, and we do a lot of states, maybe every state, I suppose. And so each entity has their own thing, and they've all read the law and they all came up with different answers. So it's kind of been a real challenge for us.
Yeah, but we always seem to come through it. And just as a reminder, uh, we've served records and gotten records from every state, every territory of the United States. In addition to that, we also have been on 33 countries on 6 continents. So we have a lot of experience gathering records for our clients. So let's find out about this reproductive health information. Let's get started on that. So I do want to say that although we are excellent at what we do and we are experts in our subject matter, we do want to remind you that we are not attorneys, that we are sharing information with you, and we are sharing stuff with you that is like up to date. We have had changes since this thing was enacted on December 23rd, and probably every single day we learn something different. So let's get started on that. I just want to give a little background on what this law is and where it came from. And so this was after the Supreme Court's decision of Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. And what happened there was a lot of concern about what happened. Once that once that decision was made, people became very concerned about how their medical records are going to be used. And so all of a sudden there's something about the reproductive system and how those records are going to be used. And they decided, the HHS, which is the Human Health Services, said, you know what, we've got to have some type of protections and we need to know what people are going to be doing with these records so that they know what the intent is. So what they wanted to do is to find out if somebody's using this information for investigation purposes and if they're going to be using it to go against somebody that has had a procedure done in one state. And I'm just going to give it to you and be really real about this. This is about people that, if they had an abortion in one state where it is legal, but they live in a state where it is not legal, the concern is the state and the people in the state the person lives in going to go after the records in another state? And I think that's a very valid concern. So why was it important that people comply with this? Well, obviously we want to make sure that they maintain trust in the healthcare system. And if people don't have trust, they're going to look for other measures and ways to get things done. And we want to make sure that everything is done so it's to the person's advantage and that they get the best care possible. We want to make sure that they protect their privacy and that there is no penalty for getting procedures that are done legally in a particular state. So, and this is really kind of important for organizations. And I know, Patty, that we are also doing the same thing. So organizations need to make sure that they read the final review, that they revise their own company policies, that they update their training. So in our company, we always do sexual harassment and cyber security training every single year. So this is something that we can add to that. I'm sure all of your companies do training as well, and you can add to that this PHI information. You want to make sure that you stay current, that you review the information. If you release information through an electronic health record system, or if maybe you do it manually, you want to make sure if you're going to be doing it electronically that the two of them match, that you're providing the same type of information when you're releasing that. And then you want to make sure that you go over that over and over and make sure that you document what you're doing so everybody has the same playbook. All right, so the reason that this was done was to safeguard their records for their reproductive health. And what they did was they made this really, really broad. They wanted to make sure that everybody knew exactly what was going to be entailed and how it was going to be covered. So they made sure that they specifically said it was for contraceptive, for fertilization treatment, for pregnancy management, and other health care. So we want to make sure that everybody realizes that this is not only just for women's health care, but it's reproductive health, but it's also for male and for gender affirming care. So, Patty, there were a lot of states, right? There were a lot of states that had their own laws for this. And I think it was 41 states that had some type of prohibition against abortion, whether it's 100% against it and or if they had like time limits and such. And 14 states had gender affirming care prohibitions. And so we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, so you know that this isn't like just affecting one area. This affects the entire United States, and this is a federal law, or actually federal rule. And so therefore, this applies to every subpoena for medical records. All right, Patty, you want to talk a little bit about the prohibition?
Sure. Uh, so it helps strengthen privacy protections because nobody thought that someone couldn't cross state lines to get medical care. So no, it wasn't something that had even been considered prior. That 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 if you crossed the borders of your state and went to another state, that you would even be considered to be a criminal or have civil or other penalties. Nobody ever thought of that. And so this is something to protect people from doing something that's legal in one state and not legal in another. I think I recently read that Florida is suing for information from New York State on exactly this subject. So they're trying to get the information from New York State for someone that went across state lines to get some type of medical treatment. So people should be able to have what they need without being afraid. They should be able to get what the healthcare services they need. And also that applies to pharmacies, because pharmacies also sell products that can affect reproductive health.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when is an attestation required, Patty?
Well, there are 4 entities that can get these types of medical records, and only one of them has to use a subpoena. The other 3 are really government entities, or except for the funeral directors, government entities. So health oversight activities, like if you have a section of the state or the states that has a lot of pneumonia deaths or a lot of tuberculosis, or you're trying to keep track of how old people get in a particular area. There are a lot of health oversight activities that are done day in and day out. And they need that kind of information on a group of people, not a single individual usually, on a group of people to see just how vast the numbers are of a particular disease or a particular problem or a particular benefit, like people that live longer in some little mountain community in Idaho or Tennessee. I don't know. But anyway, enough of that. Then there's disclosures for law enforcement. So law enforcement needs to know if you're shot and a victim shot or otherwise injured in a crime, they need to know exactly what happened with you. There's a lot of things that they would need to know in order to serve criminal people who have hurt someone. And sorry about that. So anyway, for law enforcement purposes, they need to know about people's health and what happened to them during a crime. So that, or actually about the criminals, like somebody that was in the jail and passed away. What happened with them? Why? Why did they die in custody? Disclosures about decedents to coroners and medical examiners and funeral directors, which is not put here, but it is also them. That's to let you know what happened with the person, what are they dealing with, what should they be looking for, what do they need to report, and did people actually want to donate their body parts uh, at their time of death. So those kind of things need to be given to coroners, medical examiners, and funeral directors. But with us, we're number 2 there. Disclosures for judicial and administrative proceedings. Well, judicial is civil, basically, and administrative is workers' comp. And we need that information too. We need to give them a subpoena to get that information. And on the subpoena, almost everything they ask for is listed that they ask for on the form. So one of our big arguments has been that people want us to list everything on the form that we're asking for in the subpoena. Well, sometimes what we're asking for is a page or 2 long, or even if it isn't, even if it's short, we're already giving them a document, a legal document that actually says exactly what we need and who we need it on, and the ID of the person, their date of birth, their last 4 digits of their social, and other information. We're saying that we've noticed that person or their attorney, and so which are all required. And so there's actually a section of the CFR 45 that actually lays this out as to what we have to put in on a subpoena, and that we have to give them all the information. So if you're getting a request for records and the attestation doesn't have everything they want, the PHI, but they do have the name of the person and they do have a subpoena attached, you don't need them to fill out all the PHI they're asking for. That is,
Hey, Patty,
yes.
I think that we can get to that and show them the actual document, because I think what you're saying is so important so they understand. So let's see. Here we go. I just wanted to share the attestation. So while
Right,
you're going over it, you can see it.
right. So, sorry, Diann. Diann's the guru of webinars, and I am not. So I'm in the middle of the washing machine in the office. So
You're
so
doing great.
so you don't have to require that the people that give you a subpoena and an attestation fill out everything they want. They should put the name of the person in there. And there have been other things, which I think we'll talk about later. So you basically put in the person that wants the records, which would be an attorney or an adjuster. You put in the name of the person. You put in at the bottom, you mark a box. If you mark the bottom box, you're getting nothing because you want it for not good purposes. And either the person at the top, the adjuster or the attorney, will sign it, or below that, whoever is requesting it to help that adjuster or attorney will sign it below and say what their position is. In other words, legal secretary, paralegal, assistant, whatever their job title is, and date it. It's just a good idea to date everything that you sign, even though the date is actually above the line. Did I leave anything out, Diann?
No, but we would say for best practices, if we're got an attorney and adjuster, we want to make sure that they put the name of their company next to their name. And we'll look at that on the next slide. And just because we've had this question come up so many times, box 1 and box 2. So box 1, like Patty said, is you're not using this information for investigative purposes for any type of procedure that they may have had. And so we have people say, but sometimes we use our SIU department's going to go after records. We're going to hire an investigator to go after records. And so therefore we should check box 2. No. For what we're doing and what we do in our field, we're not looking to use that PHI information against them. We're doing a claim or a case, and we're looking to see whether or not it is fraudulent or if it's valid. So always make sure that you use box number 2. Now here is a copy of the completely filled out attestation form. So here you can see that it says John Jones, the name of the firm, where they're trying to get records from, the name of the person they're trying to get records from. And as Patty said, they do not need to put all that information in on what you're looking for. We will put in there, please see the attached subpoena description for the PHI requested. And that way they have it. And then we see box 2, and then the attorney signs it. But if it was the secretary, it would certainly be the name of the secretary, and underneath it, it would say secretary to John Jones, and that would be it. It's very, very simple. It's straightforward, but I think it's just really important that everybody understands it needs to be for every subpoena and every place that there might be medical records that you're subpoenaing. So, for example, some companies require medical testing, physical testing before they hire somebody, and or do drug testing. So if you're going to be subpoenaing employment records, you should consider this, not consider, you should have it and provide it with it, because there could be medical information in that file. And if you want that information released, then you want to make sure you do that. All right, so one of the things that MacroPro is now doing is when we get a subpoena without a attestation, we will provide one. We'll do one. Our subpoena desk will sign it as the deposition officer. So you can see here we have Myra Ruiz, who's in charge of that department. She's trying to get records from Kaiser, and then she's putting in the name of the person that we want to get records from. We're not going to be using it for investigative purposes. Box 1's checked, and then she signs it and puts her authority as the deposition officer representative. Now, this is something in the beginning we didn't think we would do, right, Patty?
We never did think we would do this, but we're doing this and signing it just to make things go more smoothly until we actually get the signature of the other people, and we'll just keep doing it until to get the subpoenas out and not let them sit here waiting for signature. And then if they get rejected, we'll have to get a signature.
Right. So everybody just needs to be aware that we do this as a courtesy to you. But if the custodian objects to it, we will be coming back to you, asking you to sign that attestation. Now, for best practices, honestly, you should fill one out. You should fill one out with every single location that you're going to be requesting records from, and provide it with your subpoena request. And you can upload that on our website at any of the places where it says attached. So if you're in the process and you don't put it in one place, don't worry about it. There's another place on the website that says attached. You can attach it and send it up. Please don't send it to your customer service. That would just slow things down, and they would have to match it. Just attach it right to the request form online, and that'll expedite everything. We can do it, but again, it'll slow things down. And if every law firm and every insurance company and every TPA, if they didn't provide this, it's going to slow the process way, way, way down. And we want to make sure that we expedite this for you. The other thing to keep in mind, the other reason you want to be doing this is because if we send that subpoena out and it's rejected, you're now got a new waiting period. You got a new 21-day waiting period. And that is really going to slow things down. So please fill it out, send it in. It is really in your best interest to have that completely done. So
Right.
we have some interesting things, right, Patty? This form is so beautiful when all the blocking is off of it. Can you tell us what we're looking at?
Well, everybody is sort of scrambling around right now, and that includes the people that created this beautiful attestation. And the thing is that there's not just, I mean, there are several sections of the law, the federal law, CFR 45, that delineate exactly what you have to do. And we were scrambling around at first too, because the only people that seemed to know anything about this were the entities that are affected by it, the big health entities. And so we didn't know, our clients didn't know, nobody knew. The governmental people didn't know. So I mean, everybody's trying to do different things without looking at everything. So this one, I just talked to the people that created this. There's a law, and it's at the bottom, CFR, whoop, 164.509B2, which says that anything that is if it is added to an attestation or is deleted from an attestation, that attestation is invalid. So if you get really creative and want to do your own, don't add anything or don't subtract anything because it's not valid according to the law, and that's the law I'm giving you right there at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
So
it may be more beautiful than the ones we have, which are ours is directly from OCR, HHS, HIPAA. So ours is exactly what they want. So if it isn't exactly that, not just exactly that, you can make your own form, but you got to put just those questions there. It's not valid.
yeah, in this case, they've added things. And so that's why it's invalid. Now we have, this is from a governmental agency. Now we have a
Right.
sample from a facility that actually has medical records and they have patients. And so let's talk about what's wrong with their attestation.
Well, they want everything up at the top. It's not required uh, by HIPAA, and you don't have to fill in all that stuff. And so this isn't really a valid attestation. The thing about it is, as I said before, that we are one of four that have to use an attestation, and we're the only ones that have to produce something that is attached to the attestation that actually delineates what we want, that we, have notified the opposing side, all the things we do for subpoena. So we don't have to put the name and the name goes in the first box, but after that, we don't have to put a medical record number. There's one that says date of loss, or some that say place of accident, or whatever. People get super creative, but all those things should be on the subpoena. It doesn't belong on the attestation because they're not asking you to be that specific in identifying people.
Right. So, in this one too, the other thing that's interesting is on here they've added all that information. On the last one we looked at, they didn't have a line for someone else to an assistant, for example, to sign, and they omitted that. So that was another reason that that other form was not valid. So let's talk about some of the things that we have learned and other information that our audience should know. So this is to be used anytime that you are trying to get medical records from a pharmacy or from a doctor's office, any place that you want to get medical records. It is to be used regardless of gender, and the attestation does not need to be used when an authorization form is being provided. So if it's not litigated yet, you don't need to utilize the attestation because they're giving you authorization to utilize to get any records that you would need. You want to make sure you keep a copy of this in your file because you know what they say. If it's not in the file, it didn't happen. And then lastly, we want to make sure that you do remember the only thing you need to put on there is the name of the person you're trying to get information from. Everything else is going to be in the subpoena. An electronic signature is acceptable. So that means you do not need a wet signature. And I did see a question from someone, and I'm going to go over all the questions at the end, but a wet signature is not required. You can use an electronic signature. Now, the one thing I do want to say is the signature has to be tidy. So Patty, we've gotten some objections already for signatures, right?
Yeah, like 3 circles on a straight line. It's like, how's the custodian going to know who that is? They're not going to.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to make sure that your signature is tidy, even if it's not your normal legal signature. The custodian doesn't care about that. They want to make sure that it's legible and that they can get the records released to you because they know who it's going to. You
Right.
also want
And
to make sure that,
my opinion is that don't use your legal signature. Just write very neatly, and because I don't think you want your legal signature out there, so just write something neat that you wouldn't normally put on your checks or your documents.
right? So one thing for best practices, I mentioned to you, you should fill it out and provide it for each location. Now, the one thing you can do is this attestation is good for the entire case. There's not an expiration date, so it is good. When you are uploading those documents to MacroPro, you should consider sending us one where the location is empty. So everything's filled out except for the location, signatures there, the whole 9 yards. And the reason I say that is sometimes you think that we need to serve something at a certain facility, but we know we have to serve somewhere else. So rather than going back to you asking for it, if we had a blank attestation, we can make that correction. Or later on, we might find a location, or you might want a location, and you say, please get these records at this location. So if we're doing one location, that's totally fine because that will only take us, a few minutes. But if we're doing, 10 locations for 500 orders how many orders do we get a day, Patty?
A lot.
Right, a lot.
Over a
Okay,
thousand.
so
More, I don't know exactly. Sorry.
so if we get over 1,000, and then that's just orders, and then you got your locations, it's going to slow that process way, way, way down. So make sure that you provide us one with a blank, and that way we can help you with the incidental ones, or if we were asked to go to the wrong place to serve. All right, so you want to save the attestation on your desktop. If your company is not currently doing something to automate this for you, a lot of companies are. And to help expedite things, document retrieval companies are doing things to try to help their clients out. As we mentioned, with our attestations being signed by our subpoena desk when we don't receive anything from an office requesting that. So we want to let you know some of the things that they're doing. So some of them are filling out the document completely and then having it signed. Some of them are getting electronic signatures and doing it for them. And then others, like us, are having the deposition, as the deposition officer, we're doing that. Now, I will say, and this is one of the questions, is are we going to fill it out and send it back to you to sign? No, that's not what's happening. When you place the order, you need to provide that filled out and sent over to us with the signatures of whoever is going to be signing it. So some of the things that we have learned already, a lot of the large facilities have rejected these subpoenas. And so, Patty, do the little organizations object to them when they don't see an attestation?
I don't think the small organizations are really up to speed yet on that. I think the large ones, Optum, and some of the bigger healthcare groups know about it. The large hospitals, of course, were involved in the original designing of this regulation, so they know of it. I don't think employers know of it when we go to get employee records and ask for medical records. I think there are a lot of entities that are not aware.
Yeah, and I think, they're learning from us when we provide them to them, right? So that's great. So the large facilities are doing one of two things. They're either closing down that claim and canceling it 100% and saying, you know what, this doesn't have the attestation. And the interesting thing is this. So we sent a subpoena prior to December 23rd, and now they're just starting to deal with some of those subpoenas. because one of the waiting period, or because they've been really busy and they have a lot of subpoenas that they're handling. So they're looking at it saying, oh, well, we're going to cancel this because it doesn't have it. So even though we served it at the right time, because the records are being released now, they want to have that attestation. So be aware of that. This is, for those of you paying the bills, this is a really legitimate charge. There's no way that any copy service, whether it's a defense or an applicant copy service, could have known that the facility was going to object to this. So do know it is a legitimate charge. It's not a charge we like, but we do think it's a charge that we're only going to see like for 30 days, because most places are going to be educated, and they're going to be able to know that they need to be asking for this, as well as the copy services all know that this needs to be provided. The other thing that they're doing is they're giving like 15 days in order to provide the attestation before closing out. And we wish everybody would do that. That would be really, really great. But just know it's one of those two things. So you might get a bill for something that's been canceled at one facility, but another facility may be giving us a grace period. We mentioned the custodians who create their own. Well, you might as well just use the one that the HHS has created. And if you need a copy of that, I might regret this, but my email is Diann, Diann, at macropro.com, and I'll be happy to send that to you. Now, I should warn you that next week I'm going to be out of town, but I will get that to you. All right, so every day we learn something new. So Patty, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I kind of talked about it before. We never know who's going to reject the attestation and what their reasons are. So you're always trying to figure out how to get to the right person to try and talk them out of whatever they've decided they need to do. I know that we have had discussions with county councils. We've had discussions with the custodians at large, hospitals. It's just that this law is complex. It's more than one section. It's a group of sections, and you can't just read part of the law and decide that you're going to do that. So what we believe we have to do is to fight for you guys and fight for the way that the law is really written. And the problem, that really is what takes up most of my time and some of the time of our client people, is trying to get them to accept a valid attestation and get them to look at the rest of the law so that they understand that it's valid. And one of the things we have done is use our own, like Diann said, deposition officer. Whoever creates the subpoenas, the signature will be theirs on there as the deposition officer. If we don't have one from you guys, and we will send it out to keep your subpoena from sitting here, because we don't want you guys to have to wait for your records. We're going to do it as fast as we can. And hopefully it'll go through. Most times I think it will. We will certainly let you know if it doesn't.
Yes. And we have been very creative trying to help our clients out. We have clients that in the early days said, you know what, we want to send a subpoena and say we want all medical records except for reproductive health. And guess what? It has been objected to time and time again. The custodians just don't have time to call that information out, and so they won't. So, we have been very creative trying to help our clients get it as quickly as possible. But I think what we just shared with you earlier, just fill out the form, provide it, and that'll save you a lot of time because it won't be rejected. So we want to share with you something else that MacroPro is doing, and I will get to your questions at the end. I do see some hands up, but if you would just type your question in, we will answer those. So you can see here on the MacroPro website, this is on our main menu. You can upload your signature for an attestation by clicking that area that's circled at the top, or you can upload your e-signature. And when you click onto that, you will see this form here next to on the right hand side of the page. So you can type in your name, you can pick the type of font that you would like, and you can submit it so we have it, or you can upload your signature so that we have it. But again, it is really best if you provide it to it, but at 1,000 orders a day, and sometimes there's 25, 30 locations right? On civil, I mean, it's just a lot. So it would slow things down. All right, so I'm going to get to some questions right now. And as you see, I don't have glasses on, so I'm going to do my absolute best to see if I can read these and have them done. So, okay, so they were asking if a proper signed a medical release, if there is an additional box for HIV. So on the medical release, yes, you absolutely have to sign that. There is a place that they need to initial. That would not be the same for the attestation. They're two different documents, and they're used for two different things. But yes, for HIV, you would use an authorization form that had that. Okay, so then it says we put in the notes in the subpoena that there are additional boxes for HIV. Oh, okay, so this person's also kind of asking the same question. So in the subpoena, yes, you want to put all that information in the subpoena, and that way we will serve it and it'll be there. It does not need to be on that attestation. Will there be handouts on the PowerPoint? Yes, if you look at the control console, is a copy of this presentation. So you are welcome to download that now so that you can get it. It says, if we put in notes in the subpoena requesting, do we want to request reproductive records? Do we still have to sign it? That you don't want it. You still have to sign it, and you can't say you don't want it. Unfortunately, it is going to be objected to. Let's see here, about Kaiser. Do they require their own, or do they now agree on this attestation? Well, I am happy to say that they have been talking with us, and they do understand that their own attestation is not required, that they must accept our attestation. Patty mentioned earlier that, this is one of the things that's been taking our people's time, and part of that is that we've been really working with the custodians and trying to be their partner and help educate them so that they understand what they have to accept from us. So that's that. Let's see here. To provide an attestation when a subpoena for a claim of record. So Joe, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. It seems to be part to provide an attestation when they subpoena. Oh, okay, yeah. So that's an excellent point, Joe. If you are getting subpoenaed, you want to make sure that you do not release any records without having an attestation accompanying that subpoena. There's lots of things in your records, and medical records is part of that. So, Joe, very astute of you to catch that. Do not release records without that. You can use the document from the HHS, send it back, say, once you fill this out, send it back to us, and we will be happy to release those records, but do not release records without that. All right, should we require applicant attorneys? Yes, applicant attorneys, anybody that is requesting records, it doesn't matter who it is. If there's medical records included, you want to make sure that they do that. You're welcome, Debbie Stopper. We're happy to have provided this to you. So the question is whether or not we will fill that out, and I did mention that earlier. We won't be filling it out and sending it to you for your signatures. We need to have those sent to us completed. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Patty?
Well, if you're ordering and you order online, it's actually quite helpful because not only do you get exactly what you want in the order, but you also have the opportunity to fill out the attestation, which actually kind of fills out itself, because I believe if you're the requesting attorney or the requesting adjuster, everything will fill out except the signature, whoever's going to be signing it. So I think it's super helpful to do it that way. But if you want to do it all by hand, that's also acceptable for us. I mean, we prefer you do online orders, and a lot of our clients do, but not everybody does. So it's just, we're trying to make it easier for the people that are online, and so they can get things done for themselves faster.
Right. So here's one. It says, does this apply to the situation where a defendant has subpoenaed plaintiff's medical records in a civil matter? It does, because there's medical records involved. So anytime there's medical records involved, that's when you want to make sure you include that attestation. You're going to say something, Patty?
Well, there might be cases, rarely, when you might not definitely need one, but I tell you, I hate arm wrestling with these medical facilities. So, in order to not get something rejected and have to go through all the rigmarole, I would say anytime you ask for medical records, anytime anybody asks you for medical records, make sure there's an attestation.
Okay, Patty, we have a question here. It says, does an attestation form need to be used for billing or radiology records?
There's
I think that's going to be.
the law never says what you don't have to do. That's a problem. So here's the thing. Some billing records talk about the procedures, and it's the procedures that we're concerned about in this attestation. Like, like $500 performed abortion. I don't know. I don't know how it would go, but, and a lot of the health HMO companies, when you get their billing records, they tell you what they did. So, again, I think it would be helpful to you to just put it there. It's not that big a deal, really. And if you ask for it and we have it, we'll probably send it to all of them. We'll probably send it for billing and for images, and because the images could be of a baby, I don't know. It could be of a pregnancy. It could be of other things that I don't even know.
I think too, it's up to the custodian. They're going to determine whether or not they need it. So I'm going to say, when in doubt, include it. I think that's just probably the wisest thing to do. All right. So whoever is signing the form, or let's see here. I'm sorry, I don't have glasses on and I don't have any handy. So let's see here. Well, the signature is difficult to read. Okay, so it says, if the person's signature is hard to read, what happens? And it will be rejected with that, right? So we want to make sure that it is legible to sign. You can't type it in, but we will accept that electronic signature. So you can use the form online at MacroPro. We'll get that electronic signature and it'll be legible for us to read. So yes, to confirm that anytime you are requesting medical records, you do want to use that. With the workers' compensation we send to the doctors to review, do they need to fill out an attestation to send to us? Oh, that's a good question. What do you think, Patty?
Well, they're sending it when they're sending records to a doctor. That I don't, your records to a doctor, that I don't believe that has anything to do with an attestation. And am I getting that question in correctly?
No, I think you're exactly right. That is exactly the way I would have answered the question myself. They are the expert, and I think because they're expert, they're being hired to do something. I think that they don't need to sign the attestation. They're not requesting the records. We're providing it to them for some type of review of the records.
Yeah, and we get those records too, and we don't have to sign the attestation. It's really you saying that you're not going to use the records you're requesting for your purposes for legal purposes. So like penalties, and your doctor is your agent too, and you're giving them the records as your agent, not as someone outside of your business or your company to do something for you. So that you don't have to do that.
Yeah. So next, the other question was if an applicant copy services requesting records, and again, you do want to make sure if there's medical records involved that you do get that from them,
Yeah.
so that those records can be released.
Yes.
Um, so the question is whether or not it needs to be used for personnel and employment records. I say yes, because we don't know what's in those records. There could be pre-employment testing, there could be a drug testing. You just don't even know what somebody might say. They might say, I had a treatment done or a procedure done, and I'm on this medication because of it. So I think it's just wise to include it. When in doubt, provide it, I think is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
there's two sides of this. We send it to the custodian so that they can give us what you want. But when somebody sends it to you, you're requiring it to protect yourselves, to protect your company, just in case something inadvertently goes out. So it is really to protect yourself
yeah.
against some
It
problem, legal problem.
says, isn't attestation required for civil matters when we are producing documents pursuant to discovery? And
Yes, yes.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, even when a subpoena is asked for wages information only, well, I'm going to say there's on wages only. There's just no medical records involved with that, but I would say you wouldn't have to do it then. What do you think, Patty?
No, you wouldn't have to do that then. Uh, what you have to do and what you want to do might be two different things. But you
Yeah.
don't have to. That would be kind of silly, but then again, you're up against a custodian who just a lot of times doesn't get that much and kind of freaked out. So, uh, but we'll deal with that when it happens.
Okay, so this is an interesting question. It says, if a physician's lien claimant is requesting medical records with a signed order, do they need to send a signed attestation with their request? I say, yeah, I think they do. I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
because I don't think because they have a signed order that preempts the federal rule. I just think that means that the courts have said you need to provide these records, and you, as a person releasing records, need to protect yourself and have that documentation in your file.
So, if other government agencies and law enforcement has to use an attestation to get those records, then I would imagine they would have to also use it. I mean, you're looking at all government entities that want records, medical records, or have to do it. So, and the problem with medical records is you never know what they contain. I mean, until you get them, and then it's too late. So, yeah, I would think so too, just to be safe.
Mhm. So someone is asking about short-term disability and long-term disability records. Would we need to have it then? I personally never handled a claim, so I do not know what's in those records.
But
So
if
I
you're
would, I,
requesting records, it doesn't matter if it's long term, short term, I don't think, or from an outside entity. If somebody wants your records for a short term or long term disability, ask them for an attestation. And I would think that if you're working on something else like that, then you would want to give them an attestation. I mean, I don't know, could be something else, but the only time you don't need an attestation is when it's an authorization, but that's because you're asking for your own records in a way or allowing people to get it. So that's, I don't know. You guys, you people online know way more about claims than I do. I just know about evidence.
absolutely. So here Caroline is saying, so it appears anybody requesting records needs an attestation, correct? Anytime medical records are being requested, you would need it. Any other type of records, banking records, those type of things, you would not need it. Business records, you wouldn't need it. All right.
Well, employment, you probably would, for sure. Even though the employers probably don't know anything about this at all. But employment records do have medical records, even though they're in a separate file. I do know about being an employer. So if you're asking for medical records in your subpoena, if that's part of what you want, have an attestation.
Okay, and I think that answers Sophia's question that she had just typed in. So let's see. I think there's one more question. We have a lot of questions today. A lot of questions, really great questions. We're really pleased to be able to provide you with answers and to do this presentation for you. So it says, is it needed when the Department of SS is requesting records from us? I'm going to say anytime, it doesn't matter who is requesting records from you, you need to protect yourself. If there's medical records inside of there, you do not want to release those records without an attestation. But again, I'm not a lawyer. You can certainly talk to your legal counsel to verify that. But as far as evidence is concerned, like Patty says, this is where we're experts, and we just really want you to protect yourself and make sure that you have that attestation regardless of who's asking for records.
And it's
In
no
closing,
big
Patty,
deal. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's not like you have to fill out a 10-page form, but it is something that, I mean, if the government agencies have to use, all the government agencies have to use an attestation to get records, medical records, well then, SS is a government agency. Why wouldn't they have to use it? If you want to protect yourself and they're asking for medical records, I'll do it. Say, hey, where's your attestation? The government has to do it.
all right. We do have one here about improper, and so it says, if they're providing an authorization, do they need to add a line about reproductive health? And they do not. It's not a
No.
requirement that on their authorization form. Yes, this is a rule of thumb, should include an attestation when we subpoena orders. I'm going to say yes. And if there's going to be any type of medical records, it would be best if you did do that. Social Security requests. Wow, there's a lot of questions. Social Security usually are requested based on a signature release from the injured worker. That is true. I'm not sure what the question is here, but they do need to have that signature for Social Security.
That's an authorization, Diann. That's an authorization. I would not worry
Yes.
about it when the patient or the claimant or the whoever requests their own records or has given an authorization of any form to anybody to get their records, then you don't need an attestation.
So, Patty, the question is whether or not MacroPro's website will be automatically filling in the attestations when people go online and they order.
Yes, but it won't put
future.
your signature in unless if we keep your signature on file, we'll add your signature in. But otherwise, you might have to type it all the time. I don't really know. It's still evolving. We have 8 IT people that work for us full time, sometimes more than full time, and so they are currently working on some things to do with the signatures. But yeah.
And so that is actually a feature that is up and running right now, just so that you're aware. So you do want to use our online services so that you can, that will help expedite things and make things easier. One more question, Sophia, don't worry about it. We're happy to answer questions. No reason to say sorry. We're happy to do it. Does this apply to deposition subpoenas with the request for medical records? It does. Absolutely,
Yes.
it does.
Yes.
What about when counsel orders copies of our records?
Oh, if there are medical records in there and you're going to give it to, if it's your counsel, they're your agent. If it's opposing counsel, yeah, they better give you an attestation.
What if it's their agent? They don't need to?
No, if it's your own counsel or your own doctor that's looking at the records for you, no, you would hope that they would not report you to the legal entity.
Well, they are your partner. So I think that, even if they tried to report you, they'd say, "What are you, crazy? Of course they're giving you these records." Okay, we have another one that's a good one. It says, should we go back, look at previous records to provide attestation? And so the answer to that is no. If you've ordered records with us and there is an issue, we will make you aware of it. But and so we're trying to take care of everything on our end so that we don't have to go back. If that means our subpoena desk is doing it and doing the attestation for you to expedite it, that's what we're doing. If we have any issues, we will come to you and make you aware of that.
We are going to use the use the attestation on that claim that you provide to us for every facility waste subpoena. As long as we have a place to put the facility name in, we will use it all the way through that particular claim. If you have another claim, even with the same person, you'll have to do a new attestation. But we will not require you to give us a new one if you do an add-on when you want us to go to other locations, unless something happened in it, the dog ate it,
Yes. All right. It says, when did this go into effect? It went into effect on December 23rd of 2024. And then there is another question here about, will PQMEs require attestations for evaluations? And my feeling is no, they're not providing records. You're providing records to them, and they are your agent. So I don't think they will. It says, can we submit an attestation for the entire office signed by the managing partner for all orders rather than just one? So they want to send like one master.
No. You can have one person designated, we're working on that right now, designated to sign for every request from your office. I don't know if the software's ready for that yet. I'm not sure. They're just going at it like mad. But that way, you can have one person, the claims manager or the managing attorney or whoever, could sign the attestation for everyone in that office. But not one master to, for us to get into trouble and you to get into trouble to put it all on everything. We just can't do that. So we would, because we need the name of the person you're getting records on, and we're going to identify that and attach it to that particular document. So we need one for every claim.
All right. Well, I think we answered every question, and we want to thank all of you for participating with us today. We do appreciate your questions and you joining us today. This is a really big issue. We want to make sure that everybody's subpoenas are honored and not rejected for lack of attestation. If you have any questions, you can reach out to your MacroPro customer service rep, your regional manager in the sales department. And of course, you are always welcome to reach out to me. I put my email here so that you can do that. And then lastly, I'm just going to share with you real quick just some of the sites that we were gathered our information from so that you know where we got it. And then I think it's really important that we say this to you. Okay, Patty, this is That's all, folks. Until the next time, be sure to check the MacroPro website, and we will be listing all of our webinars and our in-person conferences. Should you have any questions at all about our services or the things that we can do for you, please be sure to reach out to myself or anybody in the sales department. Until the next time, hey, Patty, thanks so much for joining me today, and thanks everybody for attending. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
I'm trying to get this so it will leave. We can end this presentation.